Thank you very much. All right, so like Dr. Smith said, I don't really like doing PowerPoints. I prefer to just talk to you, so I'm going to go over some things about the scholarship. Feel free to ask questions throughout. Just throw a hand up and I'll try to get to you. It actually does work much better for me if you ask questions because I don't want to forget something or leave anything out, so feel free. Okay, so the Health Professions Scholarship Program. Start out by telling you it is a Department of Defense level scholarship, so it's available through all three branches of service. So it's Army, Navy, and Air Force. Obviously, I recruit for Army because we're a lot better than they are, but we'll get into that. All right? But the benefits and features of the scholarship are exactly the same. There's differences once you're done with medical school. So first and foremost, it pays 100% tuition to any medical school that you get into in the United States and Puerto Rico. There is no cap. Okay, so whatever school you are able to get into, that's what the Army is going to pay for. In addition to that, you get a monthly stipend. Currently that amount is $2,122 each month. It changes every July, but it doesn't change by a set amount. It doesn't go down, it only goes up. This past year it only went up by $30, but it's not bad. You get paid that stipend twice a month, so you get a mid-month and end-of-month check, so, or direct deposit nowadays. Nothing's a hard copy check. It also pays for books and required fees. For instance, health insurance is one of those required fees. If the medical school requires you to have health insurance, typically they have a plan, then the Army will pay for that. You're not going to get TRICARE like those of us on active duty get while you're in medical school, unless you're already affiliated with the service in some way. But otherwise, it does pay for the health insurance for you, the individual. If you're married, have dependents, that sort of thing, then there's a way to get that done, but it won't be paid for by the Army. We can talk about Mondays and Tuesdays as we go. Okay, in addition to that, there's a $20,000 cash bonus if for medical and dental. I should have asked this. Everybody in here for medical? Anybody looking dental? Okay, good. The dental stuff, just throw questions up. Medical and dental parallel each other, they're about the same. Just test scores, obviously it's different tests. But the scholarship benefits and the bonuses are all the same between the medical corps and the dental corps. Okay. So that cash bonus, they say $20,000, it's paid in 3 increments of 9, 9, and 2. Why they broke it up that way, I couldn't tell you. But it comes in over 3 months. You get your first stipend check. In between that time frame and your second stipend check, you'll get the first cut of your bonus minus Uncle Sam's take on that. Okay, so the Army's requirements. While you're in school, your focus is being a student. There are no military requirements whatsoever while you are in medical school, okay, during the school session. You're not wearing a uniform, you're not doing anything else. Occasionally I do have meetings with the people that are going to that school who are on scholarship just to make sure, hey, everything's going okay, you're getting paid and that sort of thing. But other than that, there's no military requirement. Okay? During the summers, that's when the Army wants to get their hands on you for about 45 days. All right? So the stipend pays for 10.5 months, basically the time that you're in school. The remaining 6 weeks, you're paid as an active duty second lieutenant. So it's a bit more than that stipend, it's roughly double. Okay? During the first break between years 1 and 2, what we want you to do is go to the Officer Basic Leadership course. It's a 6-week course down in San Antonio, Texas. It's a leadership development course. It is not basic training. It's not basic training like you went through. Okay? It's not people yelling at you, screaming at you, that sort of thing. You're going to outrank the majority of the people that are teaching you what you're doing. Okay? But it is basically a 3-week split between didactic and field training. So you'll learn how to fire a weapon. You'll learn land navigation. You'll go through a combat support hospital setup, that sort of thing. But you're not doing anything all that hectic. Honestly, it's 6 weeks, and they have about 450 people to funnel through at that time. So, okay. The remaining summers, if you're able to, that's when the Army wants you to shadow a physician. So you're doing clinical rotations in Army facilities. Right? Typically, between years 2 and 3, that's when you're taking Part 1, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of people don't go anywhere during that time frame. They're studying, and it's just the way the test lines up that you're just staying at school during that time. What happens then is you just get a statement from the school's administration and you're going to do an active duty training or ADT at your location. So it's basically the same thing. The stipend still stops, and for that 6 weeks, you're still paid as an active duty second lieutenant, whether you're staying in your wherever you live, your apartment, I guess, at that point, or whether you're going wherever the Army wants to send you for the ADT. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay. The other thing, you're going to apply to an Army residency. It is possible to get a civilian residency. However, unless you're in a year group that's really overstacked, it's probably not going to happen. So I would tell you, for me personally, I would feel more comfortable if you're going to go to an Army residency program. Okay. The match for Army residencies works exactly the same as it does on the civilian side. It's just you find out in December instead of that third Thursday in March. Okay, same exact process. All right, so, yes.
Where are those residencies located? Are they all over the country?
They are all over the country, typically at the medical centers. The medical centers, just a few of them. Brooke Army Medical Center is in San Antonio, Texas. That was huge. Walter Reed, combined with the Bethesda Naval Medical Center, it's right there in D.C. Most of you have probably heard of Walter Reed. Tripler is in Hawaii. There's Tacoma, Washington, Fort Hood, Texas. So they're kind of spread.
So are there any around the southeast?
Yes, yeah, Fort Gordon, right here in Augusta. So, but there's specific locations, like not all residencies are given at each location. Yeah. So I know there's an orthopedic one, I think, at Augusta here. So, but I've got the list here if you want to check afterwards. I can tell you where everything is. Yes?
How competitive are those to get into?
They are competitive. However, you have about an 86 to 92% chance of getting your top choice. Okay, that's one thing that is good historically. Individuals who go through military residencies perform very well, or excuse me, through the HPSP perform very well on the assemblies, and then they get into their residency of choice. Yeah, we'll go you first.
So for when matching into residencies, you're competing with other, like people on the scholarship, or is it just?
Yes, it actually broadens out. You're competing with other individuals on the scholarship for the Army. You're competing with those on the scholarship for the Navy and the Air Force because the other services can attend our residency programs. You're also competing with any civilians who, let's say, if they're in their final year of medical school and they want to come in at that time, they can join and come in directly into a residency program. So, what was your question?
Now, that 6 weeks officer development thing,
yes.
Is it the same thing if you're doing the Air Force? Like you're saying, Air Force offers the same scholarship?
The scholarship is the same. The 6 weeks, I believe, is the same. I'm not sure what they have you do during that time frame.
So basically, it's the exact same as the Army's, except you just switch word Air Force to Army.
About 98%, yes. Yeah. I don't want to commit them to something, but it's pretty much the same. And you're going to do rotations, and you're going to get paid the stipend for the 10 and a half.
Is that pretty much how the rest of the things going to be, or is there going to be differences between the Army?
That's pretty much, the scholarship is it. So it's after, when you're done with your medical school, that's where things differ. For instance, we were just talking about residencies. The Air Force has a much better opportunity to go to a civilian residency program. Okay, so if that's something that your heart is just set on, then the Air Force may be the way to go. The Air Force, I have nothing against the other two services, by the way. They're fantastic. We work together. Everything is pretty much tri-service anyway. If you're at a medical center, you're going to have Army, you're going to have Navy, you're going to have Air Force. Okay? The biggest difference between the three is that we are the largest. So there's more opportunity. We have 250 scholarships. I'm not sure how many the Air Force has. I know it's smaller because they just can't handle the size. So the other piece to that, though, is while you're in a military residency, not just Army, when you're in military residency, you are getting paid as an active duty captain. So in the Navy, that's an active duty lieutenant. Same thing, active duty 03. Full pay and benefits. Okay, so you're getting your officer pay, you're getting TRICARE for your dependents, you're earning 30 days of paid leave a year, everything just like I am right now. You earn that while you were in residency. Okay, if you attend a civilian residency, you do not. you are put on what's called an educational delay, and basically your service time just stops. It's put on hold. When you're done with that residency, then things pick back up. Okay? So there's a couple of more things with that, because not only are you earning pay and everything as an active duty officer, you're also, all of that time that you're in residency counts towards retirement, it counts towards promotion time, it also counts towards pay increases, because we work on a 2-year step increase. Okay? All of that counts. I'll get to you in 1 second. The final piece, and I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, everybody who comes into the military as a whole, comes in for a minimum of 8 years, whether they realize it or not. It's 8 years. Okay? If you owe, let's say you sign a 4-year contract, you owe the Army 4 years of active duty, you can get out, but then you are still kept on a list. It's the IRR, the Individual Ready Reserve, that you could be called back off of. So if you go to that civilian residency, that time is not accrued at all. So when you're done, if you owe, let's say 4 years from that point, you owe 4 years, you get out, you're still going to owe an additional 4 years on the IRR. Whereas if you're in a military residency program, that time also counts towards that MSO, or that mandatory service obligation. So for everyone here who goes to medical school, Army residency, and pays back to 4 years, which I'll get into payback in a second, your mandatory service obligation is done because it's run concurrent. So you would have no time owed back after that point. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So leads into what you owe. If you take a 4-year scholarship and take the Army, take that $20,000 cash bonus, you owe 4 years of active duty. Okay? That time does not start until you are done with your residency program. So you're a board certified physician at that point. Okay? All that other time, like I mentioned before, it counts towards pay and retirement, but it doesn't count towards that payback. Now here's the other caveat to that. The 4 years of payback is accurate as long as your residency program is 4 years or shorter. Okay? So if you wanted to be a general surgeon or a specific type of surgeon, let's say that's 6 years. Okay? 6-year residency means you owe the Army 6 years at the end, okay? Because they're giving you 2 more years of education. So it's 4 years as long as the residency is 4 years or fewer. Okay? Everybody understand that? Because that's an important differentiation there. Okay. But like I say, all that time that you're in residency, you're also untouchable, just like you are as a med student. Yeah.
Are you that only on the IRR for 2 years, or?
Well, you would be done because your residency ate up the first 6, and then after that first 2 years of payback, your MSO is complete. You have a question?
Pretty much answered this.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's see. All right. Eligibility. Must be a U.S. citizen. Have to have a letter of acceptance to medical school or dental school. Now, there is, for medical, they've come out with a caveat to that. As long as you meet the MCAT requirement and the GPA requirement, and you have applied to at least 5 schools, we can board you ahead of time. I'll get more into the board process in a minute. But the minimum MCAT is 24 with 8s in each category. You must have at least 8 in each category. Okay? We can request a waiver if you don't have that, but it hasn't been very, they have not approved very many waivers this year. Okay? Very few and far between. The only ones that really were approved is if you had greater than 9 in 2 of the categories and you had a 7 in 1 of the categories. If you had below a 7, you didn't get approved. So you would need to retake the MCAT. Okay, so 24, minimum of 8, and a 3.2 GPA. Right. The DAT, there is actually no minimum score for the DAT. However, if you get below a 15, you're not going to get the scholarship. I don't know why they don't just publish that number, but I haven't seen anybody who scored below that get it. But same GPA, 3.2. And more than likely, they will come out with more guidance as far as, they used to have automatic acceptance criteria. I won't bore you with that, but they're just like we're doing with the 5 medical schools, they may come out with something the same, similar for dental schools. Okay. All right. Okay, so the process itself is actually fairly simple. There's 3 basic pieces to this. There's the application, which is about 65 pages. But it's lengthy because it incorporates all the questions you have to have for a background or security clearance. All officers come in and have to get a secret security clearance. Okay? And included in the application piece are things, letters of recommendation, transcripts, birth certificate, social security card, normal type stuff. And I can use the letters of recommendation, the same ones that you use for medical or dental school. Okay, as long as they're within 12 months, I can just use the exact same ones. All right? So that's the application piece. All right? I take all of that and I input it into our system. The second piece is a physical exam. There is no Army physical fitness test in order to get into this program, meaning you're not required to do the push-ups, sit-ups, and run for that to get into it. It's just a standard medical physical. Right? We schedule that. In the past, we've been lucky enough to do what's called physical exam tours. I'm not sure if they're going to kick those back up. If they do, I will let you know, so maybe we could pass the information out. But what those are, the Army pays to send you down to San Antonio, Texas. While you're there, you get a tour of Brooke Army Medical Center, Centers for the Intrepid, which is where all the wounded warriors go through. And while you're there, you'll also get a physical exam and then come back. So it kind of exposes you to a bit of Army medicine in a fast and furious way. And you get some time to visit San Antonio down in the Riverwalk. So it's a nice place to visit. But like I say, they've stopped those for now because the person in charge of them left. We got a new person coming in, but they haven't said anything as of yet. Okay. So that's part two. The final part is the board itself. Okay. It's an electronic board, so it's not like when you're going to schools and you're sitting before a panel in these interview processes. It's simply taking all that data that you've turned into me and we submit it electronically to a board of, for the medical guys, physicians, obviously for the dental guys, it's dentists that are looking at that. Okay? So that's the three pieces. Typically find out, we have boards about once a month, typically. You know, holidays sometimes mess that up, but on average, one per month. So you get your packet ready, it's boarded. We find out approximately 7 days after the board closes whether or not you were accepted. If so, then there's a little bit more paperwork to do. But it's fairly painless. One thing I want to point out about for the dental guys, when you finish dental school, the Army has an AEGD program, Advanced Education in General Dentistry. There's a 1-year program and a 2-year program, which come out as a comprehensive dentist on the other side of that. Okay. You are required to apply for those programs. If you are selected, you are not required to take it, but you are required to apply for it. I think the Army's thought process there is just if you get it, most people attend. Okay. But so for the dental guys, if you decided you didn't want to go to that program, you did your 4 years of dental school, you owe the Army 4 years at that point. Okay. So you do your 4 years of active duty. You decide that you've had enough and you leave active duty, then you will still owe that 4 years of mandatory service obligation on the IRR. Or you can do it in the active reserves, which is the reserve program everybody thinks of 1 a month, 2 weeks in the summer type of thing. Okay. All right. What questions do I have? I'm running out of stuff. Yes, sir.
The residency programs, how do they compare to other residency programs across the United States in terms of jobs afterwards?
They compare very, very well. Matter of fact, I got a couple of stats here. One of them, look at, okay. Just as an example, Brooke Army Medical Center and Walter Reed Army Medical Center, they're general surgery programs. They're 2 of only 10 surgery programs in the country out of 250 total to have a 100% first-time pass rate on both written and oral boards over the last 5 years. And all of our residency programs are accredited by the same accrediting body that does the rest of the civilian residency programs. So the programs are very good. Who else? Yes, sir.
When you talk about fees that
Yes.
are covered during the education, does that include USMLE fees? Like how much it costs to take the test?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's the first time in 3 years I've had that question. Stop. I will have to get that back to you.
For some of you that might not know, the MCAT, if you take the MCAT, you probably know it's $260, $230. But the USMLEs are like $2,000, $3,000. take 3 different steps, and each one gets more expensive each time. So I think the third one is maybe up to $6,000. That would be good to know.
Yeah, I'll get the answer to Dr. Smith. Pass it around. Good question. Yes, sir.
What's it already like if you're already on contract with the military? How does that work? Does that contract cancel?
Depends on
once
what
you get
kind
the
of
scholarship-
contract you're speaking of.
Well,
Are you just a regular enlistment?
Yeah,
Okay, then
regular
all we need from your unit is a 368 approving the release and a letter from the commander as a letter of recommendation.
Okay.
That's going to be pretty much it. The ones that can't, if you're on an ROTC on a guaranteed reserve forces contract, we cannot put you in this program. That's the big one. Yes.
For anybody who's not in Army or Air Force ROTC in college, do others have a benefit of read if they were in ROTC in college to get accepted?
No. You would think so. However, I got a person who I tried pushing a waiver through for her several times this year. Even though she got into a fantastic school when she was an ROTC scholarship cadet, they still did not approve her waiver. So it's, common sense would dictate that, yes, if they've already been a scholarship recipient and done well, that the scholarship would be easier for them to get, but in actuality, it's not. So, yep, I'll come back to you in a second. Yes, sir.
So I'm in the Air Force ROTC,
Okay.
and if I go through the Air Force and become an officer and get this HPSP scholarship, that would transfer as well. Like they're not going to sit there and say, well, you need to pay back the 4 years. I'm not in scholarship. I don't have like an Air Force
Okay.
scholarship or anything right now.
All right, yeah, as long as you're not on scholarship and you don't owe them any time, then no. If you were, like say, if you're on scholarship or even not scholarship, if you've signed a contract, at least on the Army side, then you're going to owe the Army years. Because if you were to graduate and just go in as a standard officer, whatever branch they gave you, then you would owe at least 3 years. So if you got that and then you applied for the HPSP, that time is tacked on. So it would be the 3 years plus the 4. Or if you were a 4-year scholarship, you own 4 years of active duty. The 4 years for this scholarship is going to go right on the back end of that. Okay, they're not run concurrently. So you'd be in uniform for a while. You first, yes.
When you say like active duty, does that mean like combat? Like, what does that
No.
mean?
When you are an active duty physician, it just means that your primary job is in the military. So you do the same things that you would in a civilian hospital, you're just typically wearing this. So your job is at a military medical treatment facility. Okay. Now, there are deployments, and if deployments are something that you just would not want, and not just you specifically, but I'm not going to stand here and tell you that you're not going to deploy, even though things are drawing down right now with, we're pretty much not in Iraq. Afghanistan is supposed to be pulling out, but who knows what's going to happen. So if you're looking at any type of military career, you need to expect to deploy. Plus, I can't look into the future and tell you, because if you're looking 4 years of medical school, at least 4 years of residency program, 8 years from now, it's hard to say. I would say plan on going. What I can tell you right now is that doctors only deploy for 4 months. They go half the time of everyone else. Standard deployment right now is 9 months. Physicians rotate. It's actually, we've gotten to the point now where physicians are volunteering left and right because they've kind of made it through and not had to deploy, some of them, and it's a career discriminator when you get up to a certain rank. You just look at the right sleeve to see if somebody's deployed. If they have a patch here and here, then they've deployed. So now there's a list a mile long of people wanting to go, so it's a little bit more difficult. But let's say 8 years plus from now, just plan on deploying. When you do deploy, and I say I've deployed a couple times, it's not, so the last time I deployed I only had 3 kids, I got 4. You miss your family. It's hard when you leave that day, but the rest of the time, for me personally speaking, it was the most rewarding time I've had in my career, because it's the time that you are doing exactly what you were trained to do. There's not the political minutia that you have to deal with in an everyday job. I was a commander for a ground ambulance company. We were evacuating patients from one level of care out to another care, or getting them over to the mobile air staging facility with the Air Force so they could fly out of country. That was our focus. It wasn't, dealing with Pam's problems or Steve's problems. It was just focus. So it is extremely rewarding, and you will do things in the military, whatever branch of service, that you would probably never do in the civilian side. If you're looking at surgery especially, because you can do some things overseas that you would not be able to do here. It's just the way it is. When you're in a wartime situation, things are required of you. Medics especially. Medics do so much on the overseas that then they get back to the States and then they're kind of clamped down as far as what they can do. They end up doing blood pressure checks and temperature. So it's a very rewarding thing. Did somebody else have a question?
Oh, she actually asked me.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yes, sir.
What is the likelihood of deployment, especially if you're like a doctor who's specialized, like by planning being an anesthesiologist? Does that change the likelihood?
It does. As you become more specialized, there become fewer and fewer opportunities depending on what you specialize into. Anesthesiology, you get into a small group, you could deploy more because they need you over there. So it depends on what you wicker yourself into. Pediatrics, we do have pediatrics, and you would think probably off the top of your head, well, if I got pediatrics, I might not deploy as much. That's very wrong, because when we deploy, we are not just working on soldiers. We are working on host-nation civilians and their children. We are working on everybody. And a lot of times, too, deployment doesn't always mean combat scenarios. It can be deploying to Haiti. That poor country always seems to be getting devastated with something, weather or whatever. But you're going in and you're helping people. So that's also counted as a deployment, even though it's not combat related. Yes, sir.
You said 4-month rotations. How often can those potentially come if you were to get deployed as often as they wanted you to get deployed?
Right now you're looking at, if you do a 4-month deployment, you're looking at typically at least 18 months of dwell time, meaning coming back before you would go again. Now there are things that change that, because if you're in that same unit, then the unit's not going to go anywhere. But you as an individual, if you deployed, came back, and then you had a change of station to another unit, and you just happen to be going to another unit that's deploying, now, it wouldn't happen back to back because they're going to give you some time. But it is possible that you would go a shorter time frame and deploy again. Okay, but they'll give you, say there's a long list right now, so they try to manage people, especially physicians. Okay? Retention with physicians is the big thing for us, trying to keep you in. So that's one of the reasons that the deployments are half what they are for everyone else. Just trying to keep, because people get burned out. Yes, you have a question? We'll go you first.
Are all types of residency programs offered?
Just about. I could answer afterwards because I got a list of them if you were looking for something extremely specific. But
there's about 120 different specialties in the medical field. The subspecialties, you end up with another several hundred.
Yeah.
So you could have 800. So to have every one of them
quick
would be
list of
probably not
just residencies, but like I say, the fellowships and everything else that you can get. There's all sorts of stuff. All right, I go to you because I don't remember who was next. Yes.
How does the pay compare for a resident compared to a civilian resident?
Okay, it's very good actually. It's the one time in your career as a physician, more than likely, that you're going to make more than your civilian counterparts. The average resident in the state of South Carolina makes right about $48,000 a year. Active duty captain makes about $70 to $73 a year. So you're doing much better in the residency time. Once you're out, then it depends on what type of physician you are, because you get specialty pays. Everything is based on your specialty. Surgeons, it's a longer residency. Their pay is higher. But actually, if you just want to join the military for money, you need to be an oral maxillofacial surgeon, dentist, because they make good money. Did you have another question?
That's what I was going to ask. You said compared that one time, so afterwards you may be paid a little less than a civilian.
Yes,
physician.
yeah. Family practice physicians are close, but you know, you start getting like a general surgeon in the Army or an orthopedic surgeon, we're not going to be close. We can't be. So, now somebody else. I think it was you first. Yes, yes, ma'am.
Do you have anything for physical therapists?
We do. It's a different program. It's not the HPSP program. We have a physical therapy school. It's Baylor. So you apply directly into the program. The biggest difference between these, HPSP, you're going to a civilian school. With the Baylor program, it's a military-run school. It's a partnership school. It's not really military-run, but the whole time that you're in, you're commissioned directly onto active duty, and you're going through the Baylor program as an active duty officer. And I can get you more specifics if you give me your information. We have a special recruiter who does the specialty branches, which physical therapy is included in that. So it's extremely competitive. This one's competitive, that one's extremely competitive. Not to warn you, I just want you to know. So somebody else had a question.
Yeah, so I just wanted to understand this fully. If you have like a 6-year residency,
Right.
Your 4 years of medical school you'll owe, right? So does what counts for the 6 years of residency? Do you then have to pay back
If you
6 years,
have a
or-
6-year residency, don't even worry about medical school. Just take that 6 and double it, because you're going to owe the 6 years once you're done with that residency. So your payback is equal to your residency program.
But then what about the 4 years for medical school?
Well, it's kind of the same. It's run concurrently.
Okay.
So, I mean, everybody else is going to owe 4 years, but since your residency is longer, instead of saying you owe 4 plus now 2 more because it's more than the 4 that you started with, it's just easier to say make it equal to your residency program.
And sorry, one follow-up. And then you said something about retirement. Is it 20 years of active service for retirement?
As I stand here today, it is still 20 years. You may have seen in the news, they've been going back and forth, and they're always trying to shave funds here or there. And they looked at the military retirement. So far, nothing's come of it. It's still the same retirement. So at 20 years, we get 50% of our base pay. So the big key there is, as physicians, you get a bunch of extra pays that try to get you up closer to your civilian counterparts. That pay is not incorporated in. Okay, so it's 50% of your base pay. Right, and each year above that you stay above 20, you get a higher percentage. So you can max out at 75%, which is really nice. After 20 years, I got 3 left. Nothing count. So, somebody else have a hand up? Yes, sir.
What did you say about they can board you early if you apply to 5 schools?
Right. Typically, you have to have that letter of acceptance in hand for us to submit all of your information up and get an answer back. However, as long as you have the minimum on the MCAT and the 3.2 GPA, and you've applied to 5 schools, we just get you to sign a statement saying, I applied to the following schools, and list them. Then we can go ahead and submit everything up. They'll look at your information, and if you're selected, they select you basically contingent upon entrance or acceptance into medical school. So it just gets everything done a lot earlier. One of the other keys that you can do with that is the officer basic course. If you guys apply early, so you're done before March, you already know. So you've gotten word back, you have the scholarship. We can most of the time get you into that officer basic course before you even start medical school. So that does a couple of things for you. First of all, it gets it done and out of the way so you don't have to worry about it, especially if you're going to a school that has a reduced time off window. Plus, it makes sure all of your pay and benefits are straight before you even hit medical school. Because you're getting paid that active duty second lieutenant pay while you're down in San Antonio. So all of that is straight. So then when you come back and you start medical school, your tuition's paid and your stipend is ready. So it just helps set everything up on a better level. And plus, you earn about $5,000 or $6,000 while you're down there in that 6 weeks. It's a nice little pocket change for when you come back and you start school. So, yeah, somebody else had a...
So if you apply before you've been accepted, is that going to give you like a lesser chance of getting accepted? No.
No,
Okay.
no, not at all. As long as you meet the minimums. Like I say, when we start out, and this year has been very atypical. Normally, the Army is done with 4-year scholarships around July. They're gone. But this is the first year that we've had, they increased the MCAT from a 21 to a 24. They went from all 7s to all 8s, and it decimated the playing field. We have not had as nearly as many applicants as we typically do, or qualified applicants, I should say. So the final board of our fiscal year, which runs to the end of September, started today, and there were still 25 scholarships remaining out of the 250 that we started the year with. So a normal year, they're gone by July, and I always tell people that if you're interested and you even think it's something you want to do, apply. You'll get word back, and even if you are selected, you do not have to take it. You can still say no. Even if you are selected, you say yes. Until you get money from Uncle Sam, you can still say no. It's not what I recommend doing because you end up pushing somebody else out of a scholarship. But if you applied for our scholarship and were awarded it, and then 3 months later you found out that you got a scholarship from USC School of Medicine, if they gave you a scholarship, then you have a choice to make, and you are fully welcome to take their scholarship and you just say, hey, you sign a statement saying that I've decided to pursue this avenue instead, and it's that simple. Like I say, unless you've already taken money. Once you take money, then it's a little bit different story. Okay. Who else? Somebody? Yes.
So this is probably kind of a basic question, but is the scholarship merit based or is it like first come first serve, regardless of how?
Yes. Yes, it is. If you meet the requirements and you apply early, I will not guarantee that you will be selected, but your chances are extremely high. Because especially after this year, with getting so close to not making it, this is an extremely important mission for the Army, because it's how we fill all of our, about 85%, I think is what this thing says, of our physician positions. Once you guys have already gone through medical school and you're a board certified physician, it's much more difficult to get them to come in. Life happens and they have a lot more things going on, so there's just more detractors and it's hard to do. So getting the 250 HPSPs is extremely important. So since this year we are lacking in that number, there will be a bit more urgency next year. So as long as you meet those requirements, then to me, you apply first quarter, even second quarter, your chances are exponentially higher of being selected. If you wait until June of next year, then your chances go down. Because that's, for some reason, we get a big push in late May. Don't know why. Unless, maybe that's when everybody's found out that, hey, I'm going to medical school and I finally realized now that I need some way to pay for it. But then you have a lot more applicants, like I say, typically, than we have scholarships remaining. So then you're competing with everybody. So it's just, law of attrition just makes it more difficult to get. Yes, did I answer your question? Yeah. Yes.
What is the retention rate on physicians after they finish active duty?
I don't think anybody's done a study of that. Something they might not want to know. That's not in this one. I was hoping this is the only one I've got that would have that in there. It is not. Oh, unless it's in yours. Nah, they don't have anything in here about retention. Now, like I say, I'm not sure if anybody's done that study or not. If they have, they haven't given the information out. Yes.
So I wanted to get the dates straight. So if you're accepted for fall 2013,
right?
Is it too late to apply?
No, now is the time to apply.
Is the end of September the last date? Or are you saying the end of May?
No, I'm sorry. Okay, you're confused. Yeah, the people who are boarding now are already in medical school. They graduated this summer, and they've started already. Like I say, our fiscal year runs until the end of September. So right now we're talking 2012.
Oh, okay.
2013 scholarships open in October. That would be the first board possible, starting next month.
And so even if you're already accepted, you can apply and starting in October, right?
Yes.
And then the other question I have for you is, can you also join like the Army or whatever branch that you want after you've completed medical school
Oh, absolutely.
without taking the scholarship?
Yes, you
And
can.
you maybe, they pay like your residency, like you're saying apply.
Yeah,
for,
you
like,
can
the-
apply directly into a residency program if you choose to do that. There's not as many incentives for that. You know, this scholarship, if you kind of look at a dollar figure, it's worth a lot when you start looking at the tuition, all the fees, all the pay that you're going to get. So, I mean, to me, it would make more sense if you're thinking about it to do it that way. Or there's other programs that will pay you, if you were in a civilian residency, you could, we have two other programs. One is called STRAP, it's a Specialized Training Assistance Program, it's a reserve program, and FAP, which is a Financial Assistance Program, it's an active duty program. Both of them pay the same stipend as the HPSP scholarship. The STRAP, like I say, though, is just reserve, so that's all you're going to get is the stipend, and then when you're done with your residency, you owe in the Army Reserves, 2 for 1. So for every 6 months of stipend, you owe the Army a year. For the financial assistance program, you're in a residency program, it pays that stipend. In addition to the stipend, it pays you an annual grant of $45,000. And then when you're done with that, you're going to owe the Army active duty time, just like you would have on the scholarship. But I still don't think you come out as far ahead as you would. But if for whatever reason you didn't, and then you thought later to do it, you have all kinds of different programs to get you there.
And one last question is, and this doesn't have any bearing on mine. I'm just curious, do you also have to shave your hair or buzz your hair?
You don't shave it? No. There are guidelines that we have to follow. Yes, Army regulations. So it's got to be tapered appearance, off the ear, and tapered in the back. So it can be longer than mine, or a lot shorter than mine, or females, they have to be pinned up, can't be below the bottom of the collar. So, but mainly you have to be able to put a gas mask on. So, yes.
As far as like Clemson years go, when would be the time to apply for the scholarship?
The best time is when you finish your junior year. And that summer when you're prepping MCAT and all that, because you've got usually, hopefully, a little bit more free time. Then we can take you down for the physical, get that straight, and we can start all your paperwork. The physical exams are good for up to 2 years, so you can't really start too early. The letters of recommendation have to be within 12 months. But yeah, the best time frame though is right after you finish that junior year.
All right, and you were saying pretty much, with a few exceptions, most of the stuff in here applies to Air Force too.
Yes, it does. Now, I highly recommend, whether you're thinking just Army or not, contact the recruiters on the other side, okay? Because they can give more specifics to it. As far as I understand it, the scholarship itself is the same. There's no difference. I said that the one big difference, and you definitely want to ask the other two recruiters this question. In the Army, we don't have general medical officers as a requirement. So meaning that you go through medical school and you don't match, okay? The Army is going to offer you another residency program. If you still don't want that, you just have your heart set on whatever that top choice was, then it will be your choice to be a general medical officer. What that means is you go to an assignment somewhere, you sit for a year, you're doing sick call, physicals, that type of thing, and then you reapply to the residency programs the following year. Okay? But that's your choice if you decide to do that. The good thing about that, if you just decide to do that, that year that you're working, it comes off that payback. So I'm going to confuse the heck out of everybody now. But, so that it does come off of that. But with the other two services, they have a requirement to fill general medical officer slots. I don't know what the percentage is. I've heard as high as 15%. But like I said, that's why you really need to talk to them, because there is potential that you would be not going directly into a residency program.
And what was the phrasing you used to ask about?
General medical officer. Basically, you need,
In the Air Force, it's a flight surgeon.
Okay, flight surgeon.
You would be assigned to be a flight surgeon. You basically be giving physicals to recruits coming in. And it's sort of a holding pattern. In the Navy, I think they refer to it as a general medical GMO.
So, and basically, to get it across to them, just say, hey, what are the chances when I finish medical school, I won't go directly into a residency program?
All right, thank you.
Sure. Yes, sir.
Can you apply to, like, say, both the Navy, HPSB, and the Army at the same time?
You can. It's two separate
Right.
avenues, and you'd be we don't make it easy. The applications are not the same. You would think that it would be, but no. But yes, you can. We prefer that you narrow it down prior to actually applying, but no, there's nothing that keeps you from doing it.
Right.
Next question. Yes.
So you were talking about, applying now or in the next few weeks or whatever, and then you have to do your physical and your boards and all that. The physicals, that has to be done before you get approved, so.
Yes.
And, how does that work? With
The
classes
physical
and stuff like
exams,
that?
we try to work that as best we can around your schedule. There's a couple of different avenues for that physical exam. I say one was the physical exam tour, which is in limbo because I don't know if they're going to start those back up. The other two require you to be down at Fort Jackson. Okay? One is going through the MEPS, which is the Military Entrance Processing Station. And all that place is, everybody who joins the Army, like straight out of high school, you're thinking normal enlisted soldiers, they go through the MEPS. Because they go through, they get their physical exam, they're taking the ASFAB, they're getting assigned a job, they're doing all sorts of things, okay? The good thing about the MEPS is it's usually a one and done. So you're there one day, it takes usually about 2/3 of the day, and then you're done. What we like to do, especially with you being all the way up here in Clemson, bring you down the day prior, put you up in the hotel in Columbia. It's contracted with the MEPS. So you'd spend the night, you'd get up the next morning, you'd ride the bus in from the hotel to the MEPS, take care of your physical, call my office, we come pick you up, take you back to your car, and you drive out. Okay? The other way to do it, we can do a physical at a medical treatment facility. We try to get those done in one day, but that's the tough part. Because we have to have you to do labs and a drug screen, and then you have to do the interview with a physician. Okay? We were able to successfully get that done on Friday. We're still working with the relationship. If we can, it takes a whole day because we have to have you there early enough to do the labs and then for some of them to come back so they can see you in the afternoon. Okay? That one's probably the least painful day, even though it's time consuming, but it's one day. And the MEPS can be a little bit difficult, especially if you've had any kind of medical issue. If you had a broken arm when you were 4, I got to have all the medical documents surrounding it. If you had surgery on it, I got to have the pre-surgical notes, the post-surgical notes, the follow-up notes, everything surrounding that. So we still have to have similar things for the medical treatment facility, but it's just not quite as in detail.
But both of those options work around your schedule. Like,
Yes.
if you don't have class on Friday, you can do it on Friday.
Absolutely. We will work, yeah, they do them 5 days a week. Sometimes the MEPS will do a Saturday processing, but what we've learned after this past Saturday where they canceled us, we can't rely on that. So we definitely prefer to do it Monday through Friday, but it's easy enough to work around your schedule. Somebody else? Yes, sir.
Now, you said the minimum MCAT and GPA scores, but how competitive is like the average? Does it vary a lot per year, or is it near the minimum?
Well, the average score for everyone who got selected last year for the MCAT was 29 for HPSB. Now, with the 24, you would be okay to get the scholarship. I don't know what medical schools will accept the 24. It's kind of hit or miss. Now, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, but the interview plays maybe even a bigger role than the MCAT does. Because that same person that I could not get a waiver for the MCAT, she did get selected to MUSC. She had a really, really good GPA and just has one of those personalities. So the MCAT is important, but I would say it's maybe not the most important. So, does that sound right?
About 1/3. The MCAT's 1/3, your GPA is 1/3, your interview and your application kind of provides the other third. So the interview definitely is really important.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there an interview process for this?
No, there is not. It's all done behind the scenes. Like I say, if any of you wanted to visit a facility or meet a physician, I can try to schedule one. Like I say, I would like to get the hospital commander from Fort Jackson to come out and speak. He was an HPSP recipient and a pilot and all sorts of other things. But no, there's no actual interview for you.
And then also with the physical, is that something you have done before you send the application in?
No, it all works concurrently up until that board process. So I give you a bunch of documents to fill out. You start filling out the medical documents, those have to be done. But then we schedule a physical, and typically when you come down for the physical, that's when I'll get the rest of your documents from you. Okay, and fingerprint you and all that good stuff. I'm sorry, I don't know who had one up first. All right, go ahead.
Along with the contract, do you get to choose your duty station just like you do? Well, you get to have 3 choices like you would if you were a regular active duty soldier.
You do. However, your first duty station is going to be your residency. Okay, so some residency programs have multiple locations, some do not. So you're going to be kind of pigeonholed with that. When you're finishing your residency program, you work with your assignment officer. Everybody has one, and you tell them where it is you would like to go. Now, you have to be realistic in your choices, and then they will work very hard to get you your top choice. But like I said, we work with a lot of people down in Columbia, and they want to go to Fort Jackson. That's just not going to happen, okay? With most people. Fort Jackson's hospital is very small. It doesn't have, it's mainly a training base, so you get a lot of orthopedic type problems coming through there, but it's not a big enough facility. So if you put down that you want to go to one of the medical centers, then you significantly enhanced your chances of getting your top choice. Okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah, what's the average DAT score?
The average DAT score is 19.
Okay, and if you take that more than once, y'all take the highest of the two?
That's a good question. I'm glad you asked that, because this applies to the MCAT as well. No, we do not take your highest. We take your most recent.
Okay.
Same with the MCAT. It's your most recent score. And we do not pull, if you took 2, we don't pull your best verbal from one and your best physical sciences from the other. It's your most recent score. Okay? So, if you get it, if you get those 8s across the board and you plan to take the MCAT again, please apply before you retake the MCAT. So then I can board you with what I've got. Because if you take it, if you give me all your stuff and then you tell me, hey, I just retook the MCAT, then I have to remove you. Okay? Assuming that your score's dropped. It seems to happen more than I would like to admit, but the scores do go down. Yes, sir.
With active duty, are there any differences for dental?
As far as,
I mean, any differences in like medical, like
no.
with like stationing or?
No. Dental clinics, everywhere that we've got a military medical treatment facility, we have a dental clinic. And dentists also work in some hospitals. So the potential for you guys is really open. Now, for dentists, it is very possible to get Fort Jackson, if by chance you wanted to go there.
Yeah,
there's a lot of dental clinics on there, and there's the AGD program. So being that there are so many trainees coming in, brand new, and probably never had their teeth looked at, it's a very vibrant mission down there. So that would be the only difference, is you guys wouldn't have to be kind of pigeonholed into a large facility. You have more choices.
Are there any differences with deployment?
No. It's about the same with physicians going, dentists go as well. Somebody else have a hand up? I gotta take a sip of coffee. You can edit this out, right?
Yeah.
Well, I want to jump in here because Major Miller and I like to kind of spar a little bit.
Yep.
So you guys have been asking some really good questions.
Very good.
But so, you know, I was wanting to just pose a few and maybe encourage you to come up with some others. But you know, if you're needing to go, feel free to go. We'll just kind of play with this a little bit. But you know, I'm interested in going to the Navy, man. I really want to do the Navy, so why shouldn't I go into the Navy?
I will never tell anybody that they should not go into the Navy. Like I say, the scholarship is the same across the board. There are many reasons that people are drawn to different services. Right? You know, my wife is an Air Force brat, so she would gravitate toward the Air Force. If you have family history in the Navy, then you're probably going to gravitate toward the Navy. The only thing I would say is just to check all of them out to make sure that what you think you're getting in for is exactly what you're getting in for, that the opportunity is exactly the same or even better. Say the Navy has some opportunities that we don't. The Air Force does too. Aerospace medicine, we only have about 2 positions. Okay, so the other services have more than that. So there are some that those other services would line up better. And I would rather you take that course than to come into the Army and be dissatisfied. So.
Okay, I had to kind of disclaimer here. I was in the Army. I was a medic back in the 70s, long before any of you were even thought of being conceived. But anyway, I'm sort of fond of the Navy and, I mean, the Army, not the Navy.
Now I know why I'm not getting any
about
applicants
that.
out here.
So I'm biased, but I'm still, a little bit the devil's advocate here. So I've heard the branches, the Army is sort of known to being sort of the more rough, in the mud and the dirt and the grime and sort of the rough side of the military. The Navy has a certain personality or, a stereotype, and the Air Force, they're kind of snotty and elite and all that. Is that true?
Wow, you let me in with that one, didn't you? There are different personalities with the different services. The Marine Corps doesn't have their own positions. Otherwise, they would be the hardcore guys. That's just like everything else. Now, we do more field type things probably than the other two services. I mean, but if you're in the Navy, you could be on a ship. Maybe not quite as austere, but you're still out in the middle of nowhere for a long period of time. The Air Force, I will admit those guys seem to have it pretty good. But you got to check, because so many times I meet people that they're just dead set on the Air Force. And I think it's because they have this belief that the Air Force isn't really the military. It is. Please don't get that wrong. They may treat their people in a certain fashion where they're going to make sure that they're taken care of and not sleeping in a tent. But you're still going to deploy with the Air Force. You're still going to be in an austere environment. But no, I haven't actually deployed with the Air Force, so I don't know what they're actually like. But like I say, don't get confused and think that, oh yeah, I'd really like to do this military thing, but I'd like to go military light.
Military.
I'm going to go Air Force. It's
Navy light, I hear that a lot too. I don't want to do the Army because I don't want to be,
I mean, just be careful of what you get into. If you got questions, say I'm more than happy to link you up with an Army physician that can tell you exactly what it's like to be an Army physician. Or an HPSP student that's going through. I mean, we have several at the schools here in the state. So it's just too easy to do.
Any more below the belt questions coming?
Yeah. Any more leading questions trying to get it in trouble? Yes, sir.
What's the most hostile situation you've been put in?
Other than this one? None really. We are very fortunate to be medical recruiters in the state of South Carolina. We get really good support from the population as a whole. Everybody here supports the military really well, which I do appreciate. Now, in different locations in the U.S., things are a lot different. We really expected, with the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, we really expected to be challenged on some of that. But here in South Carolina, we haven't had anything. Now, it's not something we ever asked to begin with, so it really hasn't changed anything, which is kind of funny. But, I haven't been really put in a negative situation in the 3.5 years I've been here.
Well, what about overseas? You're deployed out.
Oh, well, now for me, the most difficult thing was when, I was company commander for ground ambulance unit, and we were the first ground ambulance unit to cross the berm into Iraq. So it was in the beginning of April of 2003, and we stopped. There was an area of debarkation, so you get a brief, right? And so I've got 74 soldiers, a bunch of trucks, and it's just us. We have no MP escorts. As medical guys, you're only allowed to have individual weapons. So we had 9mm and M16s. That's it. No crew served weapons, meaning a saw or automatic weapon or anything like that. They tell you that things are, just be careful as soon as you cross. There's a little Iraqi town there. We crossed the berm and all hell broke loose. Not being shot at, luckily, but kids running up into the way of the vehicles, trying to make you stop so that they could take stuff off the back of your truck. We weren't in country 3 minutes, and one of my soldiers lost a duffel bag out of the back of the ambulance because they didn't board the doors like they were supposed to. So people were coming out of everywhere, and our guys were hesitant. They didn't want to hurt anybody, but and that's what they would do. Seriously, they would send a little kid running out in front of you to try and get you to stop. And you could see going the other direction the guys who had been in country for a while, because they were going about 60, and they didn't even tap a brake. And the people knew to stay out of the way. So that was key. But we had some other areas where we were going. My unit was in downtown Baghdad, and I had crews supporting different areas within the city. And my first sergeant and I went out to visit just to make sure health and welfare and all that was going okay. This time we did have MPS work, thank the Lord, because as we were coming back, we were going down underneath an overpass, and there was an accident or something. Everything stopped, and I tell you, there had to be at least 1 million people up on top and around, and that's when it gets hectic. You know, luckily we were able to get underneath the overpass and just kind of hang out a little bit, and nobody tossed a grenade or anything in, so we were good. And then the MPs were able to clear things out and keep going. But yeah, that one was a little dicey. That's probably the worst. Other than that, you know, I've got 17 years in, and it's been 17 good years. I've got 4 kids that the Army's paid for, so it's been really good.
Thank you.
Let me just say a few things here that I usually throw in as advice to you guys. This and Major Miller can either agree or disagree, but this scholarship isn't for everybody. You need to really evaluate, is this lifestyle for you? Because it is a military lifestyle. So once you get in, of course, while you're in med school, dental school, you're just a normal, average person. No one knows unless you tell them that you've got the scholarship and that you're in the Army or one of the services. But then once you get out, then you take on the uniform. And if you have a problem wearing a military uniform, you shouldn't, seek this. Another thing, if you value your autonomy and you always want to be in charge of everything and you want to say what you are going to do and what you're not going to do, that's not going to happen. You're going to be part of the machine. You're going to take on the identity of a military person. And until you're really there, you don't really understand that. But if any of you from military families or you've been in the military, you know that there is that persona, there is that identity that you take on whether you want it or not. So there is some loss of autonomy, and you're going to be told what to do, when to do it, where to go, and you don't have any say in it, in a harsh, I guess, extreme way to put it. But they do give you mentioned 3 options, and it's, they often try to give you some choices, but they have the ultimate say. And then the other thing, if you're not patriotic, you should not do this. So if you want to be a rebel, you want to protest, you want to be somebody that is beating to the beat of a different drum, then you're not going to go along with the status quo. Then you're going to have a major problem. I have talked to many doctors that have done this, and most of them say that they do not regret it at all. It was one of the best choices they've ever made. The doctors, the 1 or 2 that I've talked to that did say it was a bad choice for them. You know what the #1 reason, or the reason, was for why they went this way?
Money.
For the money, right. And if you're going to do this just so you can get a free ride through med school, and Major Miller said earlier to me that this is like winning the lottery about $500,000.
It's about $500,000.
It's about $500,000, guys. It's a lot of money. And I don't know if you know this or not, but if you go to med school and dental school too, you're going to be about $180,000 in debt, if not over $200,000 in debt. So of course this route here is going to keep you from being in debt, and also have a very nice savings account if you don't live like a real wealthy person. So but the thing I would warn you, if you're looking at this as my way to not be in debt, and it's my way to make a lot of money, and I'm wanting the money, then you're probably going to be very, very unhappy. And also think about those other things. You need to be patriotic. You need to be willing to be part of the system, which you're going to be. The other thing is you got to be willing to travel. And if you got this, I talk to students about this, and they say, I don't want to leave mama, I don't want to leave my family, I don't want to leave my wife, and that's a real thing for a lot of people. They can't imagine going 4 months without being connected almost every day with their family. So that's a big issue. So yes, Justin.
Is that bonus and stipend, monthly stipend, is that taxable income?
It is. Yeah, Uncle Sam, which is kind of ironic. I mean, it's a government check, but then they're going to take government funds right back out of it. Yes, it is.
So the stipend is taxable? Because I know the GI Bill isn't taxable.
Right. Now, GI Bill different. It's a different pot of money. But yes, the stipend is.
And I just want to reiterate what Major Miller was saying, is that he's given you a lot of good information tonight, but it's just really been the tip of the iceberg. As he was talking, I thought of 20 different, I can't remember them now, but I thought of 20 different things that he should have, I could have said, oh, you need to mention this, you need to mention that. So he's just sort of giving you a real good overview to what this program is about, but you need to continue to, if you're seriously thinking about doing this, you need to do your research, because you want to be well informed, you want to know what you're getting into, because there is a lot of fine print, there is. And there is a difference, and it is pretty much the same, or it is the same across the three branches, but when you start getting out and doing the things that you're doing, there are a lot of differences. So we are supposed to have the Air Force recruiter, we already have him lined up to come, so you might want to come back and make sure that you hear what they have to say. We also tried to get the Navy, but she's ill and can't make it, but she might come next spring. So over the course of the year, while you're here, you need to hear what these people have to say and make sure that you're well informed. And that's your responsibility. And but this has been great. Any last questions? Anybody have anything else?
Just one more question about the residency, which is really my only concern, is if you get the score for internal medicine and put the Army onto your pediatrics, or it has a dirt with pediatrics.
No.
How is it? That's the
No.
only concern I
If
have.
your choice, if you make the scores for your choice, you will get your choice. Yeah. Yes.
Whatever.
Yeah. And actually, this little brief does have the rates and what the average scores were to get into different residency programs.
Some of the other branches won't make that emphatic. He's making a rather emphatic statement here, and as the devil's advocate, I'd say maybe. I'm not
Everything
saying
is based on test scores.
Yeah, it's test scores, and then the Army always has, the military always has the right to say, yeah, that's the way we told you, but now it's going to be this way. So it does happen sometimes, but not always. So you have to do what they tell you to do. If you've got the proper test score, and like Major Miller said, you probably got a 99% chance of getting that. But you know, you never know what the situations are going to be. But some of the services will not give. I have not heard that emphatic statement.
I've heard that about other statements, other branches that they don't give such a.
But I think the Army is more true to that, in that if you make, I mean, you guys probably, some of you don't know about the USMLEs, but the first one you take, you got to score, I think 100 and what is it? 192 on it to pass. And then every residency that you want to go into, they have a score they want you to have, kind of like the MCAT. If you want to be a dermatologist and you got a 192, no way you're going to get a dermatology residency. You're going to have to score 240 or something, you know, very high. So there's where that competition comes in. But the Army is saying, yeah, if you're a good med student and you do well on your USMLEs, and they might look at step 1 and 2. Do you look at 1 and 2,
yes,
or all 3? But you take three USMLEs, and I think they're going to look at both scores. And then if you're where you need to be on those scores, just like the 24 for the MCAT to get in, then they're going to say, yeah, we're going to put you in this residency. But that residency might be in North Dakota, and the other residency that you want to is that same specialist or specialty, and it's in Atlanta. You might be going to North Dakota to do your specialty that you want to do. So there's another, you know, thing that you need to be aware of.
Is this the list of this? Is this the, or are there more or less? Or?
Oh, these are the locations for the residency programs. I've got another slide up here that tells you exactly if you're looking at a residency, which location they're offered at. No, that's fine. That's why I brought this. Because we have a physician, Army physician, who's called the consultant. He's responsible to give us this information, and if we don't have something, for instance, the question that you asked, that's who we go back to and say, hey, sir, I need this information. So that's why he gives it to us.
When is the Air Force
representative.
If you go to the AED list website, now hopefully all of you know how to get to the website. All our events are posted there. I don't know it right off, in October sometime.
Yeah, sometime.
But all our dates for upcoming speakers events are there on the homepage for the AED website. So the website is, help me here, is aedclemson.com. If you just type that in, you'll go straight to the website. Again, it's aedclemson.com. And we're getting a lot of good information up for you guys, and the videotape will be there as well if you want to go back over some of this.
And email addresses on the back of each of these books. So if you come up with additional questions, please feel free to email them. It's, that email is a station email address. What we've done, instead of putting mine on there, it's just better continuity. That one goes to everybody who works in my office. So that way, if I leave or I'm out on leave for a week or something, then somebody can still answer the question. But if you direct it to me, then I will still be the one to respond to it.
I'd like to let you guys know that Major Miller came and told me that we got 3 people in HPSB for the Army for this year. We got 2 med students and 1 dental student. So Clemson students have been successful, are successful, but you also need to realize there is a finite number of these scholarships, and different things happen every year that causes some to be available, and other years you might be in May or June and they're all gone. So again, this is good advice here. If this is something you're interested in, go ahead and start applying. The good question is, when do I apply? When you start filling out that AMCAS, whenever you, and it should be in the summer, May the 1st, you should start filling out your MCAS. You should start contacting a recruiter and start making the process happen for HPSB, and then stay with him until you get a yes or a no, and go from there. But people do get it. We had a person, if you know my assistant from last year, David Williams, he got the Navy scholarship. And we've had people to get the Air Force scholarship as well. So, and it is a big deal. It's truly like winning $500,000.
Or more, because just as you mentioned that, University of Southern California's dental school, I think, is the most expensive one in the country. And 3 years ago, it was $100,000 per year. So, I mean, you're looking at $400,000 in just tuition.
And our dental school here in South Carolina, if you know, is one of the highest cost for dental schools in the country. It's not quite that high, but I think it's $60,000, isn't it?
60 or 70.
Yeah, the dental school is definitely
Out of state, it's even more.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
90.
out of state is close to like, it's like 90.
And I think 60 to go if you're in state,
And then
90 if you're out of state, something like that. So you're talking about a significant amount. But again, I'm not stressing the money, but make sure those other determinants are in line, and then the money is going to even make it sweeter.
I just got one more thing, just in relation to as far as no choices, or fewer choices, let's say. You do have to work within the realms of needs of the Army, okay? And you've heard that term probably a lot. So if you're looking to go a certain place and you can't get that place, and they're going to try and work with you to at least give you one of your top 3. However, on the other side of that coin, when you are an Army physician, you're not limited to the type of test you want to run, to the type of medication you want to prescribe. There's no limit that says, oh, I'm on this particular type of medical program for the insurance that I can't authorize this test, or only have 15 minutes with a patient. You just treat. They have time sets, but you treat the patient to the degree that you think the patient needs to be treated. So to me, that's a big benefit. So you're not kind of hampered by the regulations quite as much. So that's something to think about. So your freedom may be a little bit more restricted as far as where you go, but it's less restricted as to how you practice. Yes, sir.
How does that apply to like malpractice insurance?
Malpractice, okay. You do not pay for malpractice insurance as a military physician. It's still out there, it's paid for by the military. Okay, so you still have it, you're still covered. But a lot of times people say, oh, there's no malpractice. There is malpractice insurance, it's just you don't have to pay any premiums on it, okay? Which is something else to think about when you are looking at dollars to dollars. You know, that malpractice insurance can get up there for certain specialties. So just factor all that in. Like I say, and to keep beating a dead horse, but money obviously can't be your primary factor when you're making any decision. That won't ever make you happy. I mean, it'll help, but it's just going to cover something up. So if don't let that be your primary motivator for what you're doing. And once again, my whole goal is to just give you information. Okay, that's all I'm here for. I'm not trying to sway you on one side or the other. If you like, the scholarship is not for everybody. It's there for anybody who wants to take it, but it's not for everybody. So just get as much information as you can. I'm more than happy to answer whatever questions I can, you know, in person, telephone, email, or set you up, like I say, with somebody else who maybe has a better answer. But definitely take advantage of the presentations from the Air Force and the Navy. Get full information from those guys so you can make the most well-informed decision. Okay? So that's pretty much all I have. I appreciate all the good questions because that's good stuff. Appreciate it.
Is